Manuel Lettenbichler is already in the history books as one of the best motocross riders of all times. At 16 years of age, he became the youngest rider ever to finish the notoriously challenging Erzberg rodeo race in Austria, a record he still holds. Now, 10 years later, he is the 4 times world champion of hard enduro racing. He has won 3 titles in a row since 2022, and in 2023 he was the first rider ever to achieve a perfect season, with wins in all the world championship races. Mani is originally from South Bavaria in Germany, and I meet him at his home to talk about the life arch that led him to where he is right now. He shares his journey of overcoming grueling physical and mental pain to succeed at some of the harshest, roughest, most arduous races in the sports world. We discuss the parallels between the discipline in his life and what is to live with type 1 diabetes, and we talk about his plans for the future. I am Dr. Pedro Dias, and this is the Screw That podcast, episode number 3. Money. There's no way that your girlfriend or your friends can get your birthday wrong, right? Because it's like everywhere in your gear, in your bike. So 304? 30th of April. 30th of April. So what's the reason behind that?
Good question, actually. My dad, because when I was super young, I think I was like 15, I did my first Enduro competitions, and then we needed a number. My dad used to have like 189, it used to be the 18th of September, and then he just said, yeah, we're just gonna make the 304 out of it. I didn't really had any comment on this, you know. I just showed up to the race and it was like a 304. I was like, yeah, a 2-digit number would be a little bit cooler. I was like, okay, like 22 or 21 or like something which is like a little bit closer to like a lower number, but then I think now it just became such a big part, and is also pretty cool because it's a pretty big meaning because it is my birthday, and I think it's quite cool that everybody noticed me with the 3 or 4, and it's pretty easy to tell, when is your birthday? Check the number. Check the number.
Can't you just choose number 1 or number 2? Or
I could actually choose number 1 probably now after the last couple of years, but yeah. I think the 3 or 4 just sticks and is pretty cool to stay with it. Yeah. You know, I don't want to be a guy who is showing off on a number 1. I think I'm such a gentle guy anyway, so I think the 3 or 4 definitely sticks, even if we are the number 1 of the world.
And I also really like your father's number, 18-9, because that's the birthday of one of my nephews. So
really?
That says a lot of meaning. That's perfect. Yeah. So we are here in Kiefelsfelden.
Yes.
At your place. It's pretty nice here. I really like it. And how much time do you spend here per year? Yeah. Because I can imagine that you actually travel quite a bit.
We travel quite a bit, but for me, home is home, you know, like to come back home, seeing my family, having my girlfriend there, seeing all my friends, you know, like just going out of the house door and seeing these mountains in front of me and having all of these lakes around it just feels super home. And I really noticed about myself also the last couple of years now that we're traveling so much and you're so much off from home that you really enjoy being back home and enjoying the moment of like coming home also, you know, like that's the best part about it. Like if I'm on the road by myself and I come back home and I'm just gonna walk into the house door and I'm like, hey Schatzi, you know, my girlfriend is like, hey, and I was like, this is home, you know, this is the best thing ever. So quite cool. I love this spot. I love the vibe around here, and I think I would definitely like to stay here also for a longer time. Last year was quite a bit back home because I tried to stay home as much as possible, but I know with this calendar this year it looks quite busy, so maybe half a year, half, or like maybe 1/3 I'm like back home, 2/3 I'm gone. It's still a lot on the road.
Yeah. What is the longest period that you actually stay out?
I think I did, like normally it's like weeks. I would say like a week or sometimes 10 days or something like this. But then I think I already had a couple of trips where I was out for 4 weeks or 5 weeks. I remember one trip I did was 7 weeks also, which was like super long.
Yeah.
But normally it's like we do a race, we go there at the beginning of the week, the race is finishing on the weekend. Normally we come back home before we move somewhere else. So it's quite good because you're not so long on the road all the time that you always have this like, okay, I will come back home, I can recharge. For me, recharging is like the main thing and the most important thing, and the best thing to do it is be back home, you know.
Yeah. And how do you recharge?
I think just to be back home and live a normal life. I think we're living myself. Sometimes I'm so surprised about myself, like how crazy is this life actually where I'm living in, and just to come back home, go out with my friends, have a beer, like really being just a normal guy and like enjoying normal things, like going out for a hike and like ride some mountain bikes, like being out in the mountains, like just really enjoying the nature and like trying to enjoy. To be back home is such a recharge for me, even if it's only you're at the lake and talking bullshit to your friends. You know? Best thing, best thing ever, and best recharge ever.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's definitely a place with a lot of energy. You can feel it. We also have friends in common here, and it's just like, I feel like such a great, nice community. Also very tight knit, and I can imagine that contributes quite a bit to that, right?
I think the people who are around you and the people where you're trying to get around you is the most important thing. And the friends group what I have here is definitely doing a good job. It's like, they're really cool, and even if I'm traveling so much and I'm gone for 4 weeks, for example, or sometimes I don't see them for 2 months because I'm like on the road, but then I'm back home, and you're also sometimes also lazy to get out of the house or like doing something and like meet up with friends. So sometimes I have like a bit of a bigger period to don't see them, and then you go there, you talk 10 minutes, what's going on in their life, and out of a sudden it would be always as it used to be, and if I would never miss something. And that's the most appreciating thing what I can say about my friends, that is always feels super normal and super natural to join in again into this cool group.
But even when you're traveling and you're racing, you also take a bit of home with you, typically, right?
Typically, yeah.
That comes like in the form of your father. Your girlfriend is also present very often.
Yes, right? Exactly. So my dad, main mechanic at the races, like really my race mechanic at the World Championship rounds, and it's really cool to have him. You know, I think he's such a good guy, and we have such a good relationship to each other. Like we really, I think more friends than like a proper son and dad relationship. I think a lot of people maybe can't travel so much with their dad. I just enjoy it, you know. Even we had like one time I really enjoy it to tell this story. We were racing in the US, and 2 weeks later we race in Canada, and I said I would really like to stay in Canada and ride some mountain bikes in between. And he was like, yeah, I'm also coming. And another friend came, and so we were like a group of 3, and we had such a good time. Like we were in the bike park, hitting the biggest jumps, like just good fun. And he was doing the same things, you know. Like we went on a big pedal, and he said, nah, he's not gonna join, he's maybe gonna go into the bike park. And we came back, and we had this period where we said we're full vegetarian. I was like, yeah, how was your morning? Did you had a chill morning? Or nah, I went to the bike park, sent the biggest jump, and had a cheeseburger with bacon, you know. And I said, you are a mad guy. You're cool, you know. So I think it's a cool guy to have him. And sure, so another good friend, he used to come to a lot of races, my best friend Jeff. He's always there at the bigger races, which is also cool. And sure, my girlfriend last year, she was joining in quite a bit and helped me out, which is super nice. So it's a good group also, which is traveling more or less with me. Yeah.
And then, I mean, clearly you and your father, you have like a very close, like your life arch is very intermingled, right?
Yes.
Because you really share a huge passion. Clearly, like your father was a very talented motorcycle rider back in the 90s and the 2000s. And so for you, like, were you going with him to when he was going to races when you were a kid?
A little bit. My bigger sister used to be more into riding motorbikes actually.
Okay.
When we were young. I was super calm kid and quite chilled, and we had a huge horse farm, so we were riding horses a lot. And remember I got my first bike when I was 5, but at the beginning I wasn't really motivated. It's like, motorbike, cool. But then at one point I rode over like this rock which was like 30 centimeters high, so like literally nothing. But as a 5-year-old kid, you were like, holy shit.
You're in the king of
You're
the
like,
type of thing.
oh
right?
my god, that's really cool. And this is when I got really hyped up about it. And he really showed me the skills, he showed me the passion about this. And I really enjoy that it's been such a natural way, because my parents or my dad, they always supported me in the best situation. You know, I could always do what I wanted to. Like, and when I was 15, I didn't want to ride bikes anymore. I wanted to become a free ski pro, you know. I was only free skiing over the summer to train for the winter, but he was like, yeah, no problem. So I think that's the cool thing, that they were super supportive for us as kids. So we could always try to make everything. But then when I realized, okay, maybe I could do this as a job, maybe can get into this footsteps of my father, I was like, I will give it a try. We'll definitely give it a try.
I was curious to know whether like your mom was sort of like the angel on the other side of your shoulder saying like, yeah, don't don't do motorbike stuff, or how was it?
I think she used to be, from my dad, so she definitely knows about it. But I think for me as a 16-year-old kid, I had no clue what I wanted to do. I never had, even at a younger age, I never had the dream to become a professional dirt bike rider. For me, it was always like, okay, this is my dad's job. I'm still at school. I do German championships, like I just enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then when I was 16, I had to make a decision, okay, which direction would I want to go, or what's my main plan. At the beginning, I wanted to become a carpenter, work with wood. And then out of a sudden, plans changed. I already signed a Red Bull deal when I was 16 back in the day there also. They said, okay, they will support me. They tried to give me a chance to work and become an athlete who maybe has a chance to become one of the best in the world. Then sure, with my parents, they supported me quite a bit, and some other smaller sponsors, but without this supportive people around me, I would never thought that I will become like a sports athlete at one point,
Yeah.
And here we are, a couple of years later, on a pretty good level, I would say.
Absolutely, yeah. Because the moment that you took that decision, so that's like 2014, around
something like this,
and then literally around that time, I think 2015, your father also wins the Erzberg rodeo, right? So it's like you're entering the world scene, and your father is also like winning, very important, very prestigious bike races. And where did you set your goals at that time? Like, were you just going into it like, this feels like supernatural to me, or you were just already like putting some aim?
I never raced for results. I think I'm a competitive guy in some ways, but in some ways also not. I'm trying to always see the best in people. I always trying to see the best in the moments where I can make the most out of it. And even back in the days there, it was like, okay, I will go into this race trying to have the best result what I can get, and also enjoy this opportunity what I got to really travel to a country to ride my dirt bike through the gnarliest terrain on earth. Like how cool already sounds this phrase, what you can tell your friends, and I think this was more my motivation than like really racing for like, okay, I will be world champion one day. And I think that's why it also almost calmed me down in some situation, and it took the pressure off my shoulders, because you come in, and at this point also, because my dad still used to race, I never wanted to become the next Letty. I never wanted to become the next guy, the next Lettenbichler who is really being there in the front, because I wanted to become my own personality and my own sports figure, and like really showing what I am capable of with my own name. So at the beginning also they called me Mini Letty or Little Letty, and I was like, guys, I'm not little Letty, I'm Manny, or something like this. When my dad retired, then also people started to call me Letty, but it was nice because I built up my own name in a world where there's already such a big part of my dad used to be in.
Yeah, and you're talking a lot about, I mean, a bit of the development, right? And it's sort of like when you think about, a swimmer or a football player, I think it's very perceptible to people how you become a swimmer or a cyclist, because there are clubs in the cities and etc. And the whole thing is very organic. Like, how do you become a motorbike rider? Right? Like in the south of Germany, obviously, like you have your father who is a huge influence. But how does, even 13-year-old, 14-year-old, 17-year-old Mani actually trains to become that?
How I got into bikes, definitely over my dad. But then also we have like a local trials club here, which definitely gives the opportunity to ride dirt bikes, is also nowadays not really common to find places where you can ride dirt bikes. So I think to already have the access there and then show the support of your family. But if I'm thinking now that I'm like 17, for example, like definitely Red Bull helped me a lot. Like they helped me to train with a professional trainer back in the days. Like they a little bit almost guidelined me in a little bit of a direction, because I knew what my dad was doing, and my dad used to be one of the best guys, but he always used to work on the side also. And I think when I started, it was already pretty professional, but now it just tremendous stepped up, like now I would never think that I would go to work and then race on the weekend and still be one of the top guys, because it definitely changed the time. Everybody got fitter, every like parts got way more developed, like everything is like so detailed now that there's no time for any failure. And I think when I was 17 and I got this help from Red Bull to like really, okay, I have to train in this certain amount of heart rate, I should do this amount of cardio, like this amount of strength training. I think this helped me quite a bit to like really become a good athlete, even off the bike, but then also being on the bike and having this guidance of my dad a little bit definitely helped me most of the time.
Because this is also like, it's not only riding the bike, right? I mean, this is coming from someone who I don't ride motorbikes, but like seeing the Erzberg Rodeo, etc. I mean, you're literally driving a motorcycle that it's about 100 kilos.
108 kilos.
Yeah, 108 kilos. And then like through slopes that are like 45% or something slopes. And sometimes you have to get out of the bike and then carry that to position while walking on like loose surface.
Yeah.
So it's there is a lot to it, a lot. So can you elaborate a little bit more on how like the specifics of the training that you do?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, think he's riding a motorbike. Like you get on a bike and the bike is doing most of the work, but I can definitely tell it's not like this. It is pretty hardcore sport. It is our sport. It is called hard enduro because everything which is super technical, which is super extreme, more or less, we are gonna ride on it. And like you said, 45% uphills. It's even steeper, it's like way steeper. Yeah. Sometimes we're there and like, I'm looking up and like, I think I'm not gonna make it, but I will give it a try. And then you just try to get up there and you also make it somehow, but you need so much strength of your upper body, your core. Like a lot of people think that is only like an upper body thing, but you're standing on the bike and don't sit on the bike most of the time. And you stand on the bike for like, let's say Erzberg is like 3 hours, but then we have these longer races where we're standing on a bike for 8 hours.
Like Romaniacs, for instance.
Like Romaniacs, for example. And you need a lot of power in the legs as well, where a lot of people forget about it. And we're riding through really steep uphills, steep downhills, riverbeds, like rock sections which are kilometers long, like really not only like gravel, like rocks which are 2 meters big, like there's holes inside, like we're really carrying the bike through it. And yeah, it's not only twisting the throttle, you know, it's really suffering, and you really have to challenge yourself. And I always say racing is not fun because it doesn't make sense what I'm doing, but I'm pretty good in it. That's why I'm doing it, you know.
But yeah, I hear your description. It does make you wonder, like, okay, but why are you doing
yes.
it? Right? Like, why do you choose to do it? Because so there's like a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, and I feel like there is that's part of it.
It is a lot of suffering, and I think if you want to become one of the best, anyways, in any kind of sport, you have to suffer. But our sport is quite suffering, anyways. I always say the best part about racing is if you're at the finish line and the race is over.
Yeah,
that's pretty much it.
And when you train, like in terms of the specific of the training, there's surely a very like a combination between aerobic and also like resistance training versus endurance training.
Yeah. The cool thing is that our races are pretty different. Like every race format has its own style, and I think that's you also have to adopt almost your training, your riding. What you're gonna do, you're gonna make for longer races, you spend way more time on the bike just to get a seat time in. You train way more pre-season before in the season because we're traveling so much. I think it always depends the period of the year, but it's definitely everything. It's about having the body on the perfect level, having your bike on a perfect level also, because a bike setup it is pretty important. But then also the mindset of like going into a race and you know that you have to suffer now for 3 hours or 8 or 9 hours, you know. You really have to be like, okay, I'm not going to lose the focus. I'm not going to lose the motivation. I'm really sticking to the plan, what I want to do. And you really have to be disciplined for yourself.
No, I see that in you also in races, because I mean you always have a very good disposition, right?
Yeah.
There's like a very light disposition, etc. But specifically before a race and also during the race, you have a very analytic look all the time. It's like there's like I think a lot of strategy and just analytics going on in your mind.
Yeah.
I think that's part of what you're saying.
That's why I think I'm a good racer. Because I'm maybe gonna see sometimes things where the other guys don't see.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm really good with line scouting, for example.
Mm-hmm.
If there's like a leper in between the main line, for example, where you have to go up. If we do multiple lap races, you know, I'm always straight away. Okay, there's another line to the left. Okay, how we can mix it up, and to read the terrain is super important, and the focus is fully there. Like if I'm in race zone and some people ask me, did you hear me screaming? I was shouting for you next to the race. I don't hear it. You're so in the tunnel and so in the zone, in the race zone, that nothing is almost bothering you.
You just mentioned something that is very, very interesting, because like in the races that you do, especially the ones where you do like more than one loop, mm-hmm. The like second loop, the terrain might look just completely different from the first ride, and the third from the second. So that's definitely important. And when we were talking about like this awareness and focus, that also has a lot to do with your own, physiology and the way that you are hydrated, and whether you have like decent glucose levels running. If you are well nourished. So in those races, actually, how do you maintain those elements, well balanced?
Yeah, I'm always enough. From like drinking on the drinking side, using a camelback, so with a straight tube into my helmet.
Yeah.
So I don't have to take the tube onto my mouth, drink, get it back on. Like literally, the mouthpiece is right there, and I just have to grab it like this, and I can drink it. And it's always like a carbohydrate drink. Always also a little bit of Red Bull on it, actually, because of the sugar and the caffeine.
Yeah.
For me, it kind of works, and I think also if an athlete finds the right place to be and the right thing to eat or to drink, you don't want to really change it. So the same thing. I'm doing the same powder from the same company for so many years, and I definitely don't want to change it because I know it works for me.
Yeah.
This is super important for me, to be always having enough water. And with this mouthpiece, you're always drinking. Even if you're not thirsty, you almost drink because it's just right there. So it almost remembers you to drink. I think this is a really cool thing about it. And then not a big eater, let's say like this way. I think I'm pretty good with not eating. I have like my little secret is like from Powerbar, they have like gummy bears with like caffeine shots.
Yeah.
I always stick them onto the handlebar. Like they are so chewy at the bottom, so you only have to lick them. And they get kind of sticky, and you glue them onto the handlebar, and they just hold on for like 8 hours of racing. They get pretty dirty also, for sure, but you have to suffer, you know? You have to suffer, but at longer races, we always make a break. I'm not going to eat in this break. There's like a 20-minute service point or service zone where we have to stop in like these longer races. A lot of athletes, they eat pasta, or like they eat a big bowl of rice or something like this. I always make a pancake soup.
It's like a frittaten soup?
It's like a frittaten soup, frittaten soup with instant frittaten. And I think just because of the salt, we're losing so much salt. So for me, it works also pretty good in a little bit of banana and protein shake.
Yeah. So I'm coming from a triathlon background, and nutrition is really like a massive topic in triathlon. And just so that I have like a little bit of an idea there, in an Erzberg Rodeo, like you do it obviously below 4 hours typically.
Yeah.
How much do you drink?
I think I did 3 hours last year. I said I'm going to drink a lot, but now if I'm compared to other sports, I'm probably drinking still not so much.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I'm normally putting like 2.5 to 3 liters into my bladder.
Okay.
So it's normally full at the races. Sometimes at Erzberg we have a short refuel stop. Maybe going to change the camelback there as well. But I think I will drink to 2 liters. Let's say like this way. It's still not a lot, I would say, compared to other sports where they're constantly drinking, for example. But you're so in the zone sometimes also that you're in such a flow that you almost don't forget about drinking, but you're not so thirsty.
But then if you don't drink after 30 minutes, then it hits you, and it hits you hard,
really drops.
and you cannot come back from that, right?
Yeah. It's so difficult. Like I had a couple of times that I really fall into this like low energy, and to get out of there is almost impossible. Like you're so out of focus, like your concentration is off. You feel like a little bit of like a lunatic on a bike. You can't control the bike anymore because it gets quite dangerous then at the end also. So you want to be with the right amount for your person. And I think with doing a lot of races, or like in general, when I'm thinking now from the experience what I had at the beginning to now is a huge difference. Like I know that at this race, I'm probably going to drink 2 liters. I will get through it, you know, as a 16-year-old kid who started at Erzberg, what I'm going to do, you know. Yeah. So I think a sport in general is a lot about experience. Rather if it's triathlon, your first one, or your 10th one, you know, exactly, I'm going to take 10 bars. I'm going to have this amount of water at the water stops. I will, you know, you're way more calculated. And I think experience... For me, I started to race so early. I really learned quite quick also what it takes to be there in the front.
Definitely, but there's also the element of when you start so early, your body's also developing quite a bit. So your physiological needs will also change over time. So that there's also that variable that you need to take into account, right? Complicates things a little bit, but still you are in there and you learn, and all that learning that is quite complex then is very useful later on, right?
I think you just understand your body. You really...
Precisely.
Through sport, you understand your body, you understand your mental side, you really understand where you can push your limits also, I think. That's why I always say to I'm still young, you know?
But younger than you.
Like a younger generation, you know? If they come to me and they say, hey man, if they tell me, what is your hobby? We don't really have one. Just go out and do sports. It's really forming your person and your personality to become a better guy in any kind of situation in life. It just really helps to show the best out of you. And I think it's a cool advice to give to younger people, to tell them, hey guys, find a passion where you really are attractive to. If an active passion I would prefer, but even if it's like a passive passion, I think it's really about this passion where you put all of the hard work, what you can give, into a project. Also for you at the end, like I said, that discipline is so important, and you have to be like so focused on something. Is more or less the same thing with like the project what you have going on, with screw diabetes, and like having diabetes, really dealing with it, I think is more or less the same thing as like being a sports guy, is super strict with something and really trying to be super disciplined about it.
Yes, absolutely. Because with diabetes, you really need to be very much disciplined every day for the rest of your life, essentially, because you need to be aware of what you eat, when you eat, how much to inject insulin, when to inject insulin, and what you do. Because everything that you do influences the activity of all these variables. It influences the absorption of the insulin that you just injected. It influences the digestion of what you've just eaten. And then it's about also like what you're doing. Is it going for a walk? Is it lifting a weight? Is it just sitting down and talking with friends? Is it actually getting scared outside because that raises your adrenaline levels? Yeah. And there are things that are known that you know that will happen and you can plan for them. Yeah. And we spend very much a big part of our life doing that. There are also other things that are relatively unknown. And I think the fear factor is one, and the adrenaline factor is one that really, really is a super interesting one to me, because I was never very fearful, but then when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes.
Side story. It was so good when we talked about it, that we're gonna meet up, and I said maybe we can ride some motorbikes, and you said, I never rode a motorbike, but let's try it. I said, you know what this is like to ride a motorbike? It's like, yeah, I can ride a bicycle. I said, yeah, okay. I thought that was such a cool thing. Sorry for the interruption, but that was such a cool thing, because you were so open-minded and said, okay, I will get into this unknown and trying to push myself into this like adrenaline, what I'm dealing with sometimes, and we use something which is completely new, and I think that's a pretty cool thing to really step forward straight away and saying, hey, we're gonna find out.
We're gonna find out, exactly. And I was when I left the hospital, I was forcefully stepping into a world that I knew, because everything around me was similar as it was before, but I was a different person. Yeah. And the way that I would have to operate in that world would have to be different. And at that time, I had no clue how different that would be. Turns out it is very different, but ultimately, 15 years after or 16 years after, the person that I became, I think I'm pretty happy with who I am. And I think that this diabetes, I was able to use it as sort of like an empowerment factor. Yeah. Because if I was able to go through that, I definitely am able to ride a bike or do something, ride a motorbike, which is something that I've never done before, or do anything that I have never done before. And especially, and you were talking about how sports is important for the formation of someone, and I could I could not agree more. I was very active before, but then I stepped into this world and I lived for 2 years operating in it. But there was one thing that I would not put my foot into, and that was doing exercise. And I came from a background of like competitive swimming, and then after swimming, a lot of running and etc. And I just didn't do it because the fear of having my blood sugar crash down, it was just so. I can see now that it was. I mean, it was a real fear. It is a real fear. It can really happen, but with knowledge, with there are ways, of course, to prevent that from happening. And I feel like once I took that step, and it was a day that I said literally the words that came to my mind was the Portuguese version of screw diabetes, right? That's why I call it screw diabetes. And I took that step. I really feel like nothing is going to stop me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
It's a good thing. So next thing, base jumping.
Yeah,
get the adrenaline kick as much as possible, as high as possible.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's that fear, and then the adrenaline is also super interesting because like the fear, you can feel it. And you know that there's a physiological response, but then there's also moments where you can be nervous and you don't even feel it.
Yeah.
I remember last year I did this 10-kilometer swim in Altstädtesee in a lake in Austria. And I mean, it was the first time I was swimming for that long.
Yeah.
And specifically, you know, you are in the middle of a lake, and if you get hypoglycemic in the middle of a lake, it's a bit tricky, right?
Yeah.
Because one thing is you're doing an Ironman, you're running, or you're doing, cycling or something like that. You can just stop and kind of like drink, stuff like that. But in the middle of a lake, there's an element there that just makes it a bit more fearful. Yeah, I knew exactly what I had to do because I had practiced it before, so that my blood sugar levels were like really nice in range. But I did exactly what I should have done. But before the race, before entering the water, my blood sugar levels were just higher than they should be.
You got nervous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I got nervous, but I was not feeling nervous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but clearly I was nervous. And this is like also we as diabetics, because we have this window into our bodies, right? We look at our CGMs, we look at our blood glucose levels. We are able to find things about ourselves that we would not be able otherwise. You know? And so that is happening, and you're like, well, that's just what it is. There is if there's someone next to me who is not a diabetic, he's probably or she's probably going through the same experience, but their levels are pretty good still, right? But then it's important for yourself to acknowledge that and just not overreact to that moment, to understand, okay, this is just my adrenaline going. The moment I'm in the water, things are going to be fine.
Yeah.
Because the worst thing that you can do is just then inject insulin to correct those levels, but then you go into the water and then you just have like your levels crashing down and you get hypoglycemic in the water.
It's crazy what adrenaline can do with your body and with yourself, even if you don't have diabetes. For example, for myself, like if I'm at the start line at Rapid Earth Video, like I could almost feel my heart beating like crazy, and I didn't even done anything. I'm just standing there, and you're like getting so nervous, like you can really feel, okay, it's happening, you know, like it's time to go, it's time to shine. We're gonna get out there, try our best. And sometimes I'm super wondered how much adrenaline can push your body into something where you never thought about it.
Do you feel more focused at that time, or
I feel way more focused, I think. And like you said with you, that you also realized that, okay, I know what to do, you know, because you were focused, probably.
Yeah.
From my understanding now, when you tell me about it, that you said, okay, I'm focused. Okay, it's only my adrenaline which kicks in. I know that I will be fine in the water, but it's like straight away the focus which almost brings the adrenaline to life.
But in my case specifically, it's a mix of emotions, because the adrenaline is making you focus, but at the same time, my focus is not so much at that moment on doing my best at that race. My focus gets split because I'm just like now seeing sugar levels that are higher than they should be, and you're pissed because this is not healthy to me. And you also need to find a reason within your mind to just like calm down, like just calm down. It's fine. You're hyperglycemic. That's just what it is. Just don't overreact about it. Like you just need to go through it. You know that the moment that you're gonna start swimming, things are gonna normalize a bit. The adrenaline will like run out, and things are gonna go fine. It's worse if you overreact and you now like inject insulin. So in the middle of a situation where you're actually quite emotional, because that's what adrenaline is making you, you somehow need to find a very strong sense of rationality and be with yourself at your core and stable. And do you see what I mean?
Being by yourself more or less.
Yeah, and being very grounded on that decision.
Yeah.
Right, because you still need to kind of like, and then calculate, okay, I'm at 200 milligrams per deciliter, 239 milligrams per deciliter. And you need to make these calculations in your mind in a moment that you're actually quite emotional because of your hormonal response.
Yeah.
So it's a really strange and strong mix of the whole thing. And so your mind is really sometimes really everywhere. But then, you're also talking about how much you train for certain situations. Ultimately, life with type 1 diabetes is a bit like that anyway, throughout the whole day. And I mean, we've already spent some time together, and you've noticed that I'm just like, okay, sometimes I'm here and I'm like thinking, okay, will I inject now or later, or should I just wait? So I mean, the levels of the sugar levels are always in your mind, and how you should react is always in your mind, and what is it that you're going to do next that might influence all these levels is also like always on your mind. So it's very difficult to get a break. You don't get a break. So you have to be somehow very analytical at certain points, and just it can be tiring.
You almost have to think all the time about your body.
Very much
about
so.
yourself. I also think a lot about myself, but not all the time. And this is, I think, the biggest difference between you and me. That I can be at the start line and be, okay, I'm focused on the race, and you're like focused on yourself. You have to be way more focused on yourself. But like you said, grounded before that. In every kind of situation, if a person is grounded, is the best case ever. Even if it's just like a normal, like a mom's life, and the mom is taking care about the kids. If she's grounded and she's like really acting calm, it's always gonna turn out better than if she's like going crazy about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter if it's in normal life, in sports life, in diabetes life, I would say. It's all the time. I think if you're a grounded person, and this is what a lot of people have to learn, I think, to really develop themselves into like a better direction as a person. It gives them a big benefit. And I think for diabetes is even more important to be a grounded person like you are.
Yeah, sometimes it is really difficult to be like grounded all the time, and sometimes it just the situation takes the best out of you, and then you see the levels at a certain point, and then you just it's called rage injection. So you or rage bolus. Like it's like you just inject too much. Because you just want those levels to come down or something like that, and then you do it, and then God damn it, in 30 minutes I'm gonna regret this, and I'm gonna need to eat something else. So there's always like this duality and this fight in your mind. But what you said also is like absolutely true, because we just have a window into our body all the time, and there are some examples that come to my mind. Is like, I mean, of course, food is something that the relationship that we have with food is a very strange one, right? Because everything we eat influences our blood sugar levels, and that's pretty much how we have to live our lives. It's like with this on our mind. And there is food and there are meals that are clearly like better for your glucose control, for your blood sugar control, that makes it easier to control, and others less so. I mean, of course, like if I'm at a birthday party, not even a birthday party, just like having a dinner with someone, and it's just like there's cake. Like, I mean, that it's gonna be more difficult to manage that compared to a bowl of beans or something like that, right? But that is also true for people without diabetes. You know that if you have like a very heavy meal, that's also like not super healthy. But what is not healthy for people without diabetes are typically things that are happening far in the distant future, right? So you're like, oh, it's going to be fine, future money or something, or future me is going to deal with it. Whereas us, people with type 1 diabetes, you can see the immediate effects of the things that you're doing right now, right there.
Yeah.
And that can be very distressful mentally. But at the same time, it can be, and I'm a very optimistic person by nature, it can be super informative.
Yeah.
Because you're learning all the time, and you just have a window to your body that is actually enables you to actually live in a very positive and healthy way.
Yeah.
Because you start learning that if you eat this with that, oh look, my sugar levels are actually like pretty nice. And you, or this and that, but this not, and so you just start finding these combinations. And you find the healthiness and happiness in those
ways,
things,
yeah.
in those ways. Also, because it is a journey of self-discovery, that can be so pretty rewarding. This relation with food can go to a certain extent where. Going back to this example that you have a cake and you're there, you are with people around you, and there's like a conversation going on. Then your mind, as someone with diabetes, goes to, should I have cake? I feel like having cake, but it's gonna be a tough night. I'm gonna be hyperglycemic during the night. It's going to be more difficult to control. Need to inject more insulin. But that cake looks so nice. And let's just do it. And you just make the.
And you lost the conversation.
You completely lose the conversation, or you have like a split brain. Try to follow with one side and thinking about the other things with the other, and you somehow you decide let's do this. Let's indulge on this cake, and which is like pretty much a very easy decision for most of people that you don't think too much about it. Yeah, and then you have the situation where someone comes next to you. Oh, Pedro, like, do you want cake? Actually, are you sure you want cake, or maybe? And that question, and I know like. Because people know, okay, you have type 1 diabetes, you should not be eating this or that, like that or perhaps is not so healthy for you. That question itself, like I think I've got that question quite a number of times. I don't think ever it came from a bad side. Like it always came with a good intention, because people were caring, or just people are just like, they just want to know, and they want to put me at ease to say if I don't want something like that. But that question itself sometimes brings your mind to a place where, oh God, now you're making me feel guilty. Like not you, but now I'm feeling guilty myself about about the thought process that I was having, and it somehow it takes joy. Sometimes so it takes the joy out of the moment, and even sometimes if you don't need that one person to ask you about this. Sometimes just going through all that thought process, it can, to make a decision on whether eat or not eat something, can take a bit the joy out of that food. So just to say, you can imagine that at some point, at least to certain people, this, after a while, it can lead to a lot of distress.
Yeah, because you have to deal always with one more thing.
Yeah.
That's the main thing.
And you end up discovering new things about yourself. You know what is to push those limits. When did you, or have you, pushed the limits to a point where things didn't go so well?
I remember one time at Romaniacs, at this really Red Bull Romaniacs, this is our longest race. It's like 5 days, 1 day qualifying, and then 4 days on the bike for like 6 to 8 hours. Every day. And you wake up at 4 a.m. You be on the bike at 7. You race all day, you go to bed, you eat, go to bed again, wake up again, and this for 4 days in a row. And this is quite demanding on the body. And I think the first 2 goes I didn't finish because I always crashed. But I think because I went over the limit. I went over myself's limit and then just couldn't focus and concentrate on this long day on the bike. I really felt like, okay, I have no concentration. I feel I concentrated, but you're really not concentrated. And then you start making mistakes. Mistakes are costing even more energy. And then it goes quick that you crash straight away.
Did you get hurt
I
those times?
I got hurt. Yeah, one time I had my shoulder pretty bad. Like nothing was broken, but was super sore. I couldn't lift my arm pretty good.
Yeah.
One time I had a super high speed crash in like a grass field at the top of the mountain where the grass was super high, and me, no, not too much experience, went flat out and oversee one log in the grass and went big over the bars, torn 2 ligaments in my thumb. So had to go, was continuing for 2 more days, was happened on the first day, but then on day 3 I couldn't hold the handlebar anymore, and I was like, okay, it's time to stop. But afterwards I learned a lot after the 2 years, because the next year I got 4th, I think. The following year I got 2nd. Now I was winning every year.
You've been winning straight since.
Yeah, so pretty good.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, I mean, the human body, the adult human body, on average has like 200 and 506 bones.
Yeah.
How many bones of your body have you broken?
I'm pretty good, huh? Knock on wood. I'm actually really good. My bones I think is a Lettenbichler thing. We are pretty strong from the bones. It goes way quicker than ligament snaps.
The ligament.
Yeah, the ligament
weaknesses.
snaps. Yeah, it really does, because I have never broken too many bones. I did like I broke one time my thumb, and that's it.
Okay.
I never broke a collarbone. I never broke my arm. It always used to be like a ligament there, meniscus there, ligaments in my thumb, like syndesmose at my ankle, like always just ligament problems, because I think my body is quite strong and the bones are pretty strong, but at one point something has to break.
And these ligaments, like, where did you get these injuries?
Last year, for example, had a big crash in one quali race at the second last round of the World Championship, which was pretty difficult because it was on Friday and the main race was on Saturday, and I knew I didn't went to the doctor. I said, okay, I will race anyways tomorrow. There's a world title on the list, but definitely have to get it checked, because I just dabbed, like a high-speed dab. You're out there on a single trail, in the middle of nowhere, and these rocks everywhere. I just lost the front a little bit, dabbed, and I was like, I think I snapped something in my ankle. And then an hour into this qualifying race, I definitely could feel, okay, I'm not fully focused, lost the front again, had a huge crash over the bars, went like straight into the ground with my wrist, still continuing into the finish, which was super good. Got further this day, and then I was like, oh shit, I have to race tomorrow, and in 2 weeks I have to race the final round. The next day or in the afternoon, I was like, I think I'm not gonna race tomorrow. I was really so done. I couldn't move properly. I could feel my wrist wasn't like moving at all. It was like I'm moving like this, and it was swollen, like super big. But in some ways, your body finds somehow motivation and like really a strength what you normally don't know about yourself in like certain amount of times that you can really push over it. And this is what I did. Like I really pushed over this and raced the next day, and I wanted just to finish the race to collect points as much as possible. What I did, I was winning the race by like 10 minutes or something like this, which was, I think, still an outstanding performance of myself, and I never believed that I can do this. So yeah, it goes super quick, and like stupid crashes where you're just playing with your friends, or in like super high speed stuff where it's super focused, so it can really go quick.
Did you feel the pain when you were racing?
Yeah, a lot. Like at the ankle, not so much. We taped a lot of tape around my ankle, which stabilized it pretty good, but we're dabbing so much, we're turning the ankle so much, I could definitely feel it a little bit, but the wrist was a bigger problem. We also taped it fully. We did another tape over the tape. I put the jersey on. We taped over the jersey again just to really put it as tight as possible, and we started out the race, and I remember straight away it was in Turkey. Out of the race, left corner, and then just a straight jump into like flat. So like it was like a 50-meter jump, just like a flat landing, and my hand almost came off, and I was like, oh shit, this is gonna be a long day. It was like a 5-hour race. So somehow you really get into this zone, and if the body also gets warmed up, you know, it's normally everything gets a bit smoother. And this is also what happened. Like afterwards, I almost couldn't hold anything. My walking was super shit, but in this moment it worked.
Were you focused at all on the pain, or was the pain driving you?
At one point, the championship was driving me, because I knew I got passed from second place guy in the championship, Wade Young, and he was leading at this point, and I dropped down to third or fourth, and I was like, it's going to be 3 points until, if he really wins now, it's going to be 3 points at the final round, and I'm going to be like more or less fully injured, because half of my body was injured, and I know that it was not only like a bone bruise or something. I was like, this was the first time when I was thinking about points, because normally I'm like a guy, I was like, okay, I will take the championship away, I'm just trying to race the race one by one, and don't think about the bigger picture. But this was a moment where I'm like, okay, calculating, okay, nah, this shouldn't be right, yeah, you should get a bit more forward, and somehow your body just pushes and it goes.
Because right in the beginning of this conversation, you said like you were like the world championship and stuff. This was not what you were motivated by when you started out. But it sounds that at this point, like that was the reason that your mind came up with to actually fight this pain and overcome it.
Yeah, definitely. I think also I really wanted to get this title, because I missed anyways around. So I was
in Serbia, right?
In Serbia, yeah. So I was like, after Serbia, I was like, I have no chance at all. You know, I'm still pretty good with the points, but I'm coming into Red Bull Romania, it's the biggest race, with like 2 days on the bike, and there is no single chance that I will be in front and collect good points. Somehow it goes. I did a really good rehab with Red Bull at the APC. Together, where I spent like 5 weeks like really focusing just to walk, be back fully, trying to be on the bike as quick as possible. My physio and my girlfriend, actually, she's also a physio, they did a really good job through this period of time. You know, I was out of the surgery, and first thing we had a physio session this afternoon, just back home. Next day I went to Red Bull, got it checked, had a physio session. So we really just went straight into like working on my knee, and then through the race also my race physio and my girlfriend helped me out a lot to really get on the bike in the morning, because I couldn't get into the bathtub after the race because my legs were so tired. And it wasn't even the one which was injured. It was more the one which was healthy, because I think it just took over so much work of the other one. So it really protected the other leg. And I remember on day 3, I had to go like this into the bathtub to get a shower.
How was your mind back then? Like
I was just like, okay, it's one more day, it's one more day, it's one more day.
So were you going day by day?
Day by day, yeah. Pretty day by day. Not even thinking about it, but I won the first day so much with such a big gap, because I really could show my skills and my technique, which I really could play out my cards also. And on day 3, I was still in the lead. I had a still good gap, but I was also like, I have just to get into the finish now.
Like overall from your career, how often have you been injured actually? Like
this, not too often. Like I think maybe like bigger things. I had a knee surgery, a meniscus surgery, where they stitched it together, which was probably the biggest rehab I ever did. It was like 16 weeks. It happened on New Year. I got it fixed on the 3rd of January, and I was back on the bike in May something, racing.
Yeah.
We couldn't walk after the race, but we won the race.
Yeah.
But I have no idea. Like, that's why I also appreciate Red Bull and the guys so much, or like my whole setup, what I have, because without them it wouldn't be possible to be there after such a big injury, But this was probably the biggest rehab. Then, like I said, torn 2 ligaments in my thumb, then one wrist, some smaller bones were broken. This wrist, which happened in Turkey last year, took me quite long now. It was also almost 4 months because nothing was broken, but it was just so inflamed, and the ligaments were definitely not super happy to hold a handlebar and put a lot of push-ups. I couldn't do any push-ups, for example. There's always something, there's always some things where are part of the sport, were part of like a racing sport also, but a season where nothing happens are the best seasons.
Yeah. And like I can imagine just how it is a dangerous sport, right? And how it feels to actually be injured seeing the other ones racing. Yeah. And you're like set aside in a way that must be like incredibly difficult. And it goes back to the training, how important it is to also have the people to support you, the right infrastructure and the right preparation to kind of like build your body to withstand some of these shocks that you encounter or you have during the race, right?
Yeah, definitely. You really have to be on the highest level of yourself,
Yeah, absolutely. And like you come to 2023, you do the perfect season, which is essentially winning every of the major races and the world championship. So these are 6 races. Mm-hmm. At that point, you are 25 years old, right? And so for someone who started out this sport without really like aiming for the world championship, not really thinking about it, you get to 25 years old, so 9 years later, and you not only have the world championship, which you had before, but you are the first rider to do the perfect season. Yeah. How do you deal with that? Because we were talking about injuries, we were talking about this difficult situations for your mind, but I can imagine that how did you deal with this?
It is a pretty difficult situation also right now. Like, I really made history. I won the races what I wanted to win. I almost have to figure out what's next. What's next on the list for Manuel Lettenbichler. What I want to do, what I want to focus on, what I want to be a guy who's going to just win another races and win another titles. But like I already said at the beginning, I'm not really the guy who is like chasing results. I'm chasing memories and I'm chasing moments, like really life moments. And I also have to figure out what's next and what the big goal is, especially after perfect season, after winning 3 world titles in a row now.
Because of course the perfect season was in 2023, but then yes, of course you also won 2024.
I won 2024 and 22.
And 22, but like so that the 2024 is also an interesting moment, I think, because it goes back to that injury that we were just talking about. You're coming from a perfect season. When you get to Serbia, essentially, like you're still with the possibility of actually doing the perfect season. Yeah. So how was that mindset,
I couldn't believe it when the season started, the 24 season, that I'm still winning. I was really like, this is not possible. Like, I was so surprised about myself. I was surprised about how is it possible that Manny is still going to a race and still wins after winning 6 out of 6 races. I won 2022 already 4 races. I was already, I think at Erzberg last year, I won 10 races in a row, which is insane, Yeah. I never believed this. And then I got injured. But then I came back. So I missed 1 race. I came back, won it straight away in Turkey, actually, because when I was still healthy, I had the prologue. I said to my girlfriend, I said to Eva, hey, I think it's going to happen this time. Or actually at Romania, I already said it. I think now it's gonna happen. I will lose. And she's like, "Ah, yeah, really? You think so?" I said, "I think I'm gonna lose, and you know what? I'm totally fine with it. I'm totally fine with it because I definitely accepted we're gonna party if I'm not gonna win. We're gonna party anyways if I'm gonna win, but we're gonna really party if I'm not gonna win. Because I said it is unbelievable what we're doing and unbelievable to go to races more or less unhealthy and then still win it is quite impressive. But this happens so often now that it becomes so naturally. It becomes naturally for myself, for the team. Everybody is like, yeah, we just go there, we just win, job done, let's go home. It's at the end a job. Is really a job where a lot of people forget about it. That you go there and you just want to deliver, but it's at one point is like how. So I said we're gonna party hard. If I'm gonna get second, I didn't get second, so we didn't party hard. But yeah, at one point it happened, and
you had to wait until España. Right?
I waited to España.
The very final race of the season, right?
The very final race of the season. I got third there. I won the title still, but I got third there. I had a huge crash, twisted my knee and my ankle again, where I was like, okay, I'm gonna torn my ACL also again. I was done. We didn't party afterwards. I didn't wanted to talk to anybody. I was crying in the finish. I was just emotionally so done, and I never really could enjoy it, this title, so much. For me it was more, okay, it's over. Finally it's over. I suffered so much this year. I missed one round. I got injured. I worked my ass off to be back. Then got injured again. Did 2 races injured, and you're so in like suffering mode, controlling mode, that you almost can't really enjoy what you just did. Yeah, I was quite happy when the season was over. I was emotionally exhausted. My body was super exhausted. I could definitely feel that it was a hard year on the body, and yeah, I hope this year doesn't go the same way.
What did you do after that race in España?
I went straight to a photo shoot on Tuesday. Now we had a team shooting for indoors, because normally we have an indoor series, the Super Enduro series, where one of my main competitors, Billy Bolt, he's a master class in this series, and we had a shooting exactly on Tuesday. I didn't really rode a lot. I said I will go it, and then I went back home, and I remember when I was home, I haven't done anything. I was home. I went to Red Bull, did some physio, tried. We almost couldn't do much, but I was on the magnetic field, like trying to get as much physio time, rehab time as quick as possible. But I was really like, I don't want to party. I don't want to see anybody. I'm just happy to be home now, to be home and be like happy with what I have.
Would have that happened in the same situation if you had finished España in third or second, but without crashing?
I think so, yeah. I think so. If I would have been fit, or like not fit but healthy, I would have enjoyed it way more, I think. I accepted it in Romania already that I'm gonna lose probably. Yeah. So it was totally fine to lose a race, like for everybody, for my sponsors, for everybody. I didn't have to show anybody that I have to win this race again or do another perfect season, maybe even missing one round. Like I didn't even care, but it was just, I was suffering so much to finish this that I really, if I would have been healthy, I think I would have really enjoyed it. Yeah.
And so now 2025, we just heard that the World Championship in its known form is not going to happen.
Yeah.
The races themselves independently, they are organized somewhat independently. So some of the races at least will still take place.
Yeah.
So now, like at the offset of the season, at the start of the season, essentially, how are you envisioning this?
It's going to be quite interesting, I think, 2025. Like we have some races which are still continuing. Like the big races are still happening. The big races are even giving like a world title out for winning just a single race, you know. Like Pedro Dias is giving out like an extreme enduro championship title just for this single race. At the beginning, I wasn't a big fan of it, but I think now it could maybe be a potential for the future that it's gonna be like in skiing, you know, or in mountain biking. You have a World Cup, and you have like single events which are gonna be World Championship. I think this could be a pretty cool idea, maybe. But now, like it is really like standpoint today, we don't know yet. I think is a cool opportunity to find out what's next for myself, because maybe it gives me opportunity to have a bit more time for other stuff, to maybe explore some other stuff, to figure out different races, maybe to see some other races, see maybe other sports, how they gonna do it in their sports, to maybe develop myself, but also the sport. How can we keep on the sport to keep it professional, to make it bigger, to give the younger generation, the next generation, a cool platform where they can show off and show that they are maybe the best in something. I'm quite open-minded right now, and I'm definitely wanna do and focus on racing on the bigger races, but I'm also open if somebody's asking me, hey, can we do this, or let's do something like this? I'm like, okay, sounds like a plan.
But change still within motorcycle sport, like, but changing modalities or creating
career changing. I think no, like probably don't. I'm pretty good in the sport what I'm doing. Huh?
Yeah.
I think it's
very clear.
Yeah, this is pretty clear. So to get into a different sport, I think is quite difficult to jump in now and say, okay, I'm gonna race mountain bikes now. You know,
you're pretty good at that too.
I'm pretty good in this too. But the guys who are doing on a World Cup level, they do this since they're young, and it's hard to get into something like this. But I am open for any kind of cool marketing ideas to like really maybe bring some projects out where I'm like, okay, I had this vision in my mind, maybe we could do this one day. Maybe it's a good year to try it out and see if it works or not. And I'm quite curious, because if you always live like this, you don't see what's next to you. And I think maybe this a bit more freedom, or like not freedom, but more free time that we don't have a championship, can be pretty good to do other cool stuff.
Yeah. So kind of like even creating new sub-discipline or a sub type of riding or competition within the hard enduro.
Maybe different, like own competition, or like a signature event, or like.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter if it's a video project or something completely random. You know, I think the sport has a lot of potential. I'm willing to put a lot of effort in, I think, with the right amount of people to help their out. But we're gonna see where it goes at the end. We still waiting for a decision what they're gonna do. But if we have a plan, then we make a plan, and we make, I think, a pretty cool plan where I can see myself as a good role model in the sport, but then hopefully also as a good sports athlete in general.
Yeah.
Like we talked already before, that my goal is definitely to become one of, like just seen as a sports figure or as an athlete. You know, you don't want to be always this motor guy. You would be way cool if you can really show the world how cool Manuel Lettenbichler can be on a motorbike, but maybe can be also skiing gnarly stuff, or ride some mountain bikes pretty good, or doing some other cool stuff. You know, I think this is what I think the world haven't seen so far, but I think it's maybe a cool opportunity also to show the audience.
Yeah, definitely. I think what you're doing here with us, with me, because this is part of a bigger thing, you know, like participating in the Screw Diabetes project to exemplify that human capacity can be infinite, right? And I think it's definitely like a really nice step towards that. I mean, I also myself, I took a step into sort of like the unknown a little bit forcibly when I was diagnosed with diabetes. And can be scary, but can also be like really exciting when you do it. And I can just like wish you the best of luck for what's coming. I'm really excited to see what's happening this season for you and in the future. One of the strongest images that I have of you in 2023, just before becoming world champion, right, was that, I mean, I think it's kind of like a famous moment where you're just approaching the finish line, and there's this photographer or a fan behind you, but like with a video camera, and you fist bump him. And you're just like, yep, I got this. Yeah. And you just go in and you cross the finish line, and it's so special. It's such a special sport because it's like, I don't know, like cycling. You cross the finish line and you just like go really fast, right? But like in hard enduro, you cross the finish line and you kind of like just stand there because the finish line sometimes is really on the top of something very gnarly, very difficult to get there. And just like your father and your team and your girlfriend just come to you, and you just like, you break down, sort of like your emotion is just there. That's just a beautiful image. Same thing in 20 and then in the last race of that season, and pretty much any race that you win, it just sees the power that the community around you has. Just feel like it's very clear the love that you have for the sport, and the importance that you put on the people who are around you. That it really seems to be a very strong driving force.
If you can't be back home all the time, just take home with you, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
and take the right people with you. That's the main thing. And
so to me, it's a really great example of community. And community is important for screw diabetes as well. It's also like a message that I really want to pass over. So Manu, was really a wonderful conversation. Yeah. And best of luck for your future.
Find out what's gonna happen.
Yeah.